Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel with a new story. This story will be more exciting like others. So, let's start. It's all started with a letter taped to my door. Violation notice. It read in bold, red letters. My heart pounded as I unfolded the paper. Excessive guests? I muttered. The HOA was trying to fine me for having too many visitors. It made no sense. Sure, my friends came over often, but that's what friends do, right? I lived in a quiet, gated community. At least, that's what the brochures promised. The HOA had always been a little strict, enforcing rules about grass height, parking, and even what kind of curtains we could use. But this was a new level of absurdity. I decided to fight it. I marched to the HOA office, determined to clear up the misunderstanding. Mrs. Wilkins, the HOA president, sat behind a large mahogany desk, her glasses perched on the edge of her nose. "Mr. Carter," she said with a practiced smile, "we've received multiple complaints about the number of visitors you entertain. Our community prides itself on peace and order." "Peace and order?" I scoffed. "My guests aren't causing trouble. What's the real issue here?" She pursed her lips. "Our bylaws state that no home should have an unreasonable number of visitors within a given month. It creates disturbances and security risks." "Unreasonable? What's the number?" "That information isn't disclosed," she said coolly. "But you've exceeded it." I clenched my fists. "And what about Mr. Andrews down the street? He throws pool parties every weekend. Or the Johnsons, who have their entire family visiting every summer. Those situations have been reviewed accordingly," she said dismissively. Something wasn't right. Frustrated, I left the office and did what any reasonable person would do. I started digging. I spoke with my neighbors, gathering stories of unfair HOA rulings. Then I stumbled upon something interesting. One of my neighbors, a retired real estate agent, let it slip that the HOA board members had been renting out properties under the table, violating their own regulations. I couldn't let this go. Using my knowledge of property records and some help from a friend who worked in legal affairs, I compiled evidence. Illegal short-term rentals, undisclosed profits, and outright fraud. It was all there. The deeper I dug, the more dirt I found. It wasn't just Mrs. Wilkins. Several board members were involved, making thousands of dollars from secret Airbnb listings while enforcing hypocritical rules on the rest of us. Armed with the information, I confronted Mrs. Wilkins at the next HOA meeting. In front of a full room, I laid out my findings. Gasps filled the hall as I displayed printouts of the rental listings, some under fake names. "This HOA has no right to fine me for visitors when its own members are breaking the very rules they enforce," I declared. Mrs. Wilkins stammered, but the damage was done. Homeowners began to murmur among themselves, their frustration growing. Several neighbors stood up, sharing their own grievances about the HOA's double standards. A formal complaint was filed, and within weeks, an investigation was launched. HOA board members resigned one by one, unable to justify their actions. The illegal rentals were shut down, and the unfair fines were overturned. But it didn't stop there. The scandal made local news, leading to wider discussions about HOA abuses. The new HOA leadership made sweeping changes, ensuring transparency and fair treatment for all residents. As for me, I kept hosting my friends, guilt-free. I had one not just for myself, but for my entire community. The experience had been stressful, but justice had been served. And in the end, it was a victory worth celebrating, with a party, of course. As the dust settled from the HOA scandal, I thought I could finally breathe easy. That's when the mysterious letter arrived. It was tucked under my doormat, unmarked except for a single red wax seal. My heart raced. Was this a threat? I picked it up, hands trembling, and opened it. Stay away from the HOA, it warned. You have no idea who you're messing with. I glanced around, my pulse quickening.
Who would send something like this?
I had exposed their corruption, but was it really over? A sense of dread crept in. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Days turned into weeks. Every time I stepped outside, I felt eyes on me. Neighbors smiled, but were they really just friendly? Or was there an unspoken tension simmering beneath the surface? I decided to investigate. Late one night, I noticed a shadowy figure lurking by the community clubhouse. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone and followed. The figure slipped inside. I hesitated but pushed the door open, the hinges creaking like a warning. Inside, I found a group of familiar faces. Members of the old HOA board gathered in secrecy, whispering heatedly. They were plotting retaliation. I barely held back a gasp, realizing this was far from over. I needed a plan. I couldn't confront them directly. That would be too risky. Instead, I recorded their conversation, piecing together their intentions. The stakes had risen. I had to protect my community again. This time, it wasn't just about the rules. It was about standing firm against a hidden threat. The game had changed, and I was ready to play. If you like this story, so please like this video and subscribe this channel for more videos like this and support me.